tomasparshe atma pavitrite, Bhakti bole patumi brahmanda shodite. The Lord replied, I am touching you just to purify myself, because by the force of your devotion you can purify the whole universe. Bhavad vidha bhagavatas, tirtha bhuta swayam prabho, tirti kurvanti tirtani swantastena kadabrata. Saints of your caliber are themselves places of pilgrimage. Because of their purity, they are constant companions of the Lord, and therefore they can purify even the places of pilgrimage. Name bhaktas chaturvedi mad bhakta swapacha priya tasmai deyam tato grayam sacha pujo yatahyaham. Even though a person may be a very learned scholar of the Sanskrit Vedic literatures, he is not accepted as my devotee unless he is pure in devotional service. However, even though a person is born in a family of dog-eaters, he is very dear to me if he is a pure devotee, who has no motive to enjoy fruitive activity or mental speculation. Indeed, all respects should be given to him, and whatever he offers should be accepted. Such devotees are as worshipable as I am. Vipradvishad guna yutad adavindanabha padada vinda vimukat swapacham vadishtam manye tadarpita mano vachane hitarta pranam punati sakulam natu buddhimana. One may be born in a Brahmin family and have all 12 Brahminical qualities, but if he is not devoted to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who has a navel shaped like a lotus, he is not as good as a Chandala, who has dedicated his mind, words, activities, wealth, and life to the service of the Lord. Simply to take birth in a Brahmin family or to have Brahminical qualities is not sufficient. One must become a pure devotee of the Lord. If a Shwapacha or Chandala is a devotee, he delivers not only himself but his whole family, whereas a Brahmin who is not a devotee but simply has Brahminical qualifications cannot even purify himself, not to speak of his family. Toma deki, toma sparshi, gai toma gun, sarvendriya fale shastra nirupan. Mahaprabhu continued, by seeing you, by touching you, and by glorifying your transcendental qualities, one can perfect the purpose of all sense activity. This is the verdict of the revealed scriptures. It's a very sweet expression of Mahaprabhu. Here, Toma deki, you know Bengali. To see you, Toma sparshi, to touch you. Toma deki, deki is referring to sight, and then sparsha is referring to touch. So sparshi, to touch you. And then gai, tomar gun, to sing your glories. Right? So this is the real expression, the real fulfillment of the senses, to be able to have the darshan of a Vaishnava like this, to embrace the Vaishnava, to sing their glories, to see them. You know, this is the purpose of our senses, right? To have the darshan of the Lord, of the devotees. The senses are not to be rejected, right? This is Vaishnava Siddhanta. We do not reject anything, but rather everything is being properly engaged and connected, right? So this is Mahaprabhu, the Lord himself, personally speaking about his devotee. Right? Sanātan's filthy. He's been traveling, right, for how many days as a fugitive. And he's wearing rags and he's got a long beard. And so naturally he's like shying away when Mahaprabhu is coming to embrace him. And Mahaprabhu is saying, what are you talking about? Like, this is the real perfection of all of my senses, to be able to embrace you and meet you and like this. And then chanting all these verses from the scriptures. explaining one who has devotion, they may be in a very low condition of life apparently, but they are actually, the best. They are supreme because of their devotion. And conversely, someone may be in a very high status of life, but they have no devotion in their heart. They are nothing. And now he's quoting another verse. This is a well-known verse. Akshno, this is from Bhagavatam, I think. So. Akshno phalam tvajishya darshanam hi tano phalam tvajishya gacha sangha jiva phalam tvajishya kirtanam hi sudorlabha bhagavata hi loke. Okay, so this is very nice. Akshno phalam, the phal is fruit, right? So the fruit of the eyes. Tvajishya darshanam hi is to have your darshan. The fruit of the eyes, of the sense of sight, is to have your darshan. And then tano phalam tvajishya gacha sangha. Tano is of tanu, right? The body. So to tvajishya gacha sangha, to touch your body is the fulfillment. So to embrace you is the fulfillment of my body. Jiva phalam, jiva is the tongue, right? So the fulfillment, jiva phalam, the fulfillment, the fruit of my tongue, the fulfillment of the tongue, of speech. Tvajishya kirtanam hi, to glorify you. Kirtanam, to be able to sing your glories. Sudorlabha bhagavata hi loke. It is not only dorlabha, rare, but sudorlabha, extremely rare. Bhagavata, to meet a devotee like you. Hi loke, in this world. Wow, very, very nice verse. My dear Vaishnava, seeing a person like you is the perfection of one's eyesight. Touching your lotus feet is the perfection of the sense of touch. Glorifying your good qualities is the tongue's real activity. For in the material world, it is very difficult to find a pure devotee of the Lord. Eta kohi kohe Prabhu shuno Sanātana Krishna bodo doya mohe patita pavan. Mahaprabhu continued, my dear Sanātana, please hear from me. Krishna is very merciful, and he is the deliverer of all fallen souls. Maharudava hoite toma kodila udar, kripa samudra Krishna gambhir apar. My dear Sanātana, Krishna has saved you from Maharodava, life's deepest hell. He is an ocean of mercy, and his activities are very grave. Sanātana kohe Krishna ami nahi jani, amba udar hetu toma kripamani. I don't know who Krishna is. Sanātana replies, as far as I am concerned, I have been released from prison only by your mercy. So who is Krishna? I don't know. Krishna is very far away, but you are everything to me. And so we may similarly feel like that about our Guru, right? That Krishna is far, but Guru is near, and Vaishnavas are near, right? Mone chotila boli Prabhu Prashna koila, adyo panta sab kata teho shunaila. Mahaprabhu then asked Sanātana Gosvāmī, how were you released from prison? Sanātana then described the story from beginning to end. Prabhu kohe toma dui bhai prayage milila, rupanupam duhe Vrindavana gela. Mahaprabhu said, I met your two brothers, Rupa and Anupam, at Prayag. They have now gone to Vrindavan. So Mahaprabhu just finished his instruction to Rupa, right, in the previous chapters described their meeting in Prayag. Tapan Mishreya Chanja Shekadede Prabhu Agyai Sanatan Milila Dohade. By the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sanatana Gosvāmī met both Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar. Tapan Mishra Tobe Tade Koilani Mantran Prabhu Kohe Kor Koroho Jaha Sanatan. Tapan Mishra then extended an invitation to Sanatana. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Sanatana to go get a shave. So he's just like chanted like all these verses, you know, like you're so pure, you can purify all the universes. And so, but actually, you know, go wash up a bit, go cut your hair. You know? Perhaps that's instructive for all of us, right? Don't take all of that as an excuse to not take a bath, you know? Because it is quite funny, it's included that detail here, isn't it? After all of that, you know? Chandrasekhare Prabhu Kohe Bolaya After this, Mahaprabhu called Chandrasekhar and asked him to take Sanatana Gosvāmī with him. He also asked him to take away Sanatana's present dress. Bhadra Korayatade Gangastan Korailo Shekarniyatade Nuttan Vastradilo. Chandrasekhar then made Sanatana Gosvāmī look like a gentleman. He took him to bathe in the Ganges, and afterwards he brought him a new set of clothes. Now I'm sure Srila Prabhupada has something to say about this. I'm going to read this purport. The words Bhadra Koraya are significant in this verse. Due to his long hair, mustache, and beard, Sanatana looked like a darvesh or hippie. I'm not making that up. It's right here. It's right here. Due to his long hair, mustache, and beard, Sanatana Gosvāmī looked like a darvesh or a hippie. Since, oh no, it's going to be hard to read this, man. It gets even better. Since Mahaprabhu did not like Sanatana's hippie features, he immediately asked Chandrasekhar to get him shaved clean. If anyone with long hair or a beard wants to join this Krishna consciousness movement and live with us, he must similarly shave himself clean. Oh my goodness. If anyone, okay, we read that. The followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu consider long hair objectionable. Oh my goodness. Consider long hair objectionable. Okay, I'll stop there. I won't read the next few sentences. It's too much for us. Can't handle it. Sevrastra Sanatana Koilo Angika Shuniya Prabhu Mane Ananda Hapar. Chandrasekhar offered a new set of garments to Sanatana Gosvāmī, but Sanatana did not accept them. But Sanātana did not accept them. When Mahaprabhu heard news of this, he became unlimitedly happy. Bhadyan koriya Prabhu gela bika kori bade Sanātana loya gela tapan mishra gode. After bathing at noon, Mahaprabhu went to the house of Tapan Mishra for lunch. He took Sanātana Gosvāmī with him. Pada prakshalan kori bikate bosila Sanātane bikadeho mishware kohila. After washing his feet, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat down for lunch. He asks Tapan Mishra to supply Sanātana Gosvāmī lunch also. So it's very beautiful to see this personal care, right? And that the Lord has for his devotees. He, first he receives him, embraces him. He asks him, what's happened? How are you? How was your journey? And so on. I met your brothers. Then he's introducing him to the other Vaishnavas in Varanasi, asking them to take care of him, right? And then he's making sure he has lunch. I mean, it's so beautiful, so beautiful. Where else will you hear this, right? This is why we are here. Tapan Mishra then said, Sanātana has some duty to perform, therefore he cannot accept lunch now. At the conclusion of the meal, I shall supply Sanātana with some remnants. I think Sanātana is a little shy to eat with Mahaprabhu, and also he wants Mahaprabhu's Maha Prasad, right? So I think that's why Sanātana, he said, he's a little busy, he'll take later, don't worry. Bika kori Mahaprabhu Vishram korilo Mishra Prabhu shesh pacha Sanātana dilo. After eating, Mahaprabhu took rest. Tapan Mishra then gave Sanātana the remnants of food left by Mahaprabhu. Although actually, I said it was Maha Prasad. Because normally Maha Prasad, it's mentioned later in Caitanya-caritāmṛta that Mahaprasad is what's directly offered to the Lord, right? And then when that Mahaprasad is taken by the Vaishnava, then that's called Mahaprasad. But then Mahaprabhu is the Lord himself. So, but still, the prasadam must get elevated even more, right? So it would still be Mahaprasad. Maybe Mahaprasad, maybe. Right. Yeah, and there's some sweet comment when Mahaprabhu visits that Kshira Chora Gopinath, that Gopinath deity who steals the kheer. There's some comment there how, like Mahaprabhu, as Gopinath, he'd already taken that prasad, right? But he wanted to taste it again, like taste the prasadam, like that's something different, right? Gopinath had eaten, Mahaprabhu had tasted it as Gopinath, but then he wanted to try his own prasad, like there's some new flavor there. I don't remember if that isn't directly in Caritāmṛta. It might have been Param Guru Maharaj's comment. I heard that. But I mean, it would make sense, right? That's the whole reason why Krishna is appearing as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? He's able to experience something which he cannot otherwise. He wants to take prasadam like the rest of the devotees, always getting bhoga, but I want to try I want to know the sweetness of prasad, That I can only experience that as my own devotee. Misha Sanātana dila nutan vasan vastranahi nilateo koiloni vedan. When Tapan Mishra offered Sanātana Gosvāmī a new cloth, he did not accept it. Instead, he spoke as follows. Varevastradite jadi tomar hoe man nija paridanek deho punatan. If you want to give me some cloth according to your desire, please give me an old cloth you have used. Tobe mishra punatan ekadutti dilo, deho dui bahirvas koping kodilo. When Tapan Mishra gave Sanatana Gosvāmī a used dhoti, Sanatana immediately tore it into pieces to make 2 sets of outer cloth and underwear. So he won't accept the new cloth, so he accepts an old cloth, but even that one cloth is too much for him, so he tears that up. That's how they lived, right? The 6 Goswamis in Vrindavan. Yeah, extreme, extreme austerity. And the question may come, why they lived like that, right? Because, actually Vaishnavism, as we were just discussing, it doesn't reject anything, right? There's nothing wrong with living with all the accessories of this world, right? Yukta-vairagya, right? That's really our conception. So the question may come, why did they live like this, like so extreme? And on one level, they're illustrating this point, right, that we don't need anything from this world, actually, and we should try to live as simply as possible, and only strictly take what we really need, for our body and for our service. So they're illustrating that, they're illustrating this extreme mood of the detachment that will come, right, within one who has developed devotion for the Lord. And so they give it, in that sense, it's a very beautiful example for all of us, right? We can all think about that, how much we are using Yukta-vairagya as an excuse, right? And how much we are, really applying. Right? You know that term, right? Yukta-vairagya. Yukta-vairagya means, vairāgya means renunciation, and yukta means like properly adjusted. And we hear of falgu vairāgya, means false renunciation, where someone just rejects everything. But then Yukta-vairagya is where you accept what is necessary in the service of the Lord, and that you're not actually rejecting anything, but you're using everything in service, right? This is the real Vaishnava principle. So that's Yukta-vairagya, and that's something that Saraswati Thakur emphasized so much, right? Because he was, as you know, Saraswati Thakur was very revolutionary, and rather than like showing the stereotype of a holy man living in a cave, he was like, bring it on, like only we should use modern technology, using a big expensive motor car in Vrindavan, using the printing press, using all these things. That was very prominent in his preaching mission, this principle, Yukta-vairagya. And in one of his publications, the Gaudiya was a monthly publication. On the cover of every single magazine, he published these 2 verses of Rupa Gosvāmī, defining what is false renunciation and what is proper renunciation. So that's how much he emphasized it. Every single edition, every month, he published that on the front cover, because that was very, very central to his preaching and all his missionary activities. That no, we're not afraid of the world, and we're not afraid of money and beauty and all these things, but we will boldly come out and use them in the service of Hari. But then it's in stark contrast with how the Goswamis live, right? And so it can be a little puzzling. But another thing too that was a part of Saraswati Thakur's idea is that we don't imitate. Like the way that the Babaji, the Goswamis and the Babajis lived, it's a very elevated style of living, if it's actually authentic. There's also a term, markaṭa vairāgya, monkey renunciation, right? The monkeys look very renounced, right? They don't wear clothes, they live in trees, they just eat a few berries. But if you look at their activities, you know, the male monkey's always thinking about the female monkey and the female monkey, you know. So it's not like real renunciation. So this was also something Saraswati Thakur pointed out, right? We're not imitating, right? But we're worshiping that. You know, people criticize Saraswati Thakur for introducing the sannyas ashram, but Saraswati Thakur, and this is what many people don't understand. It's not that we are against the Babajis, right? But rather we consider Babaji to be much higher. It's not that there's anything wrong with being a Babaji. We're against that, but it is too high. We worship that. It is too high for us. The sannyas, ashram, brahmachari, all this, it is a lower thing. It's a part of the varnashrama system, right? So that's Saraswati Thakur is taking a humble position. So many others, they're running, oh yes, you know, we will live like the Babajis, walk barefoot and so on. But Saraswati Thakur is saying that's too high. You know, I'm worshiping that. You know, a few days ago we had a nice discussion about you know, on this topic, and another example is Radha Kund, right? Like so many of them, they use the Radha Kund tilak, and we don't use Radha Kund tilak. No, is it because we think it's bad? No, we consider it's too high, right? So many persons go to live at Radha Kund, right? Because in Upadeshamrita, Rupa Gosvāmī clearly states, you know, one who can, you know, bathe in the waters of Radha Kund, right? They'll experience the highest, you know, limits of divine love, right? And so then so many persons are going and bathing in Radha Kund, but what is Saraswati Thakur's approach? You know, we will stay in Govardhan, you know, one step below. You know, we will stay in Govardhan. We will worship that. You know, we worship Radha Kund and that statement of Rupa Gosvāmī. Yes, it is true. You know, but we are in a lower position, so we will stay in Govardhan, you know, one step removed. So it's a very careful approach, right, that Saraswati Thakur is making. You know, he's showing the feeling of one who's actually deeply connected to something, right? It's not a storybook affair, right, or some imaginative thing, right? Like, what was that expression of Śrīla Sridhar Maharaj? Plodding in the mud of misconception, right? Thinking that they're swimming in the divine waters of Radha Kund. Or Swami Maharaj's expression, which I like very much, eating the mind's bananas. I like that very much. Eating the mind's bananas. Like, a lot of our spiritual life can just be that, you know, just it's some, you know, fairy tale imagination thing we're living out, but it's just a mental exercise, right? So this is so consistent in Saraswati Thakur's mood and approach, right? That is above, and we are below, and we will approach that with care. And I love so much that statement we heard from Param Guru Maharaj he made on that occasion when he went into Vrindavan, and there you see that photograph in big fancy motor car, and we can't really understand how shocking that was. You know, first of all, only very wealthy people would be able to afford a motor car. You know, like now, of course, nowadays everybody has a car, but back then, this is like 1933 or something like that. You know, so you need to be wealthy first of all. You know, second of all, the Goswamis went barefoot everywhere, wearing loincloths, living under trees, like, and so, you know, you can understand why every temple in Vrindavan closed their doors to him. Just thought he's completely bogus, except for the Radha Raman temple. They were the only ones. But then he made this wonderful expression. Śrīla Sridhar Maharaj mentions it. He said, what could be, Saraswati Thakur in that time, he said, what could be better than to ride in Vrindavan in a motor car, even while within one's heart earnestly aspiring to roll within the dust of Vrindavan. What could be better than, I can't remember the exact way he phrased it, than to earnestly desire from the core of one's heart to roll in the dust of Vrindavan, even while ostensibly riding a big motor car, right? So it's a very profound statement, right? In other words, we're not trying to make a show of devotion, but it's something that we cultivate within, right? Oh, I'm a great devotee, I will live like Rupa and Sanātana, right? But no, I'm a part of this world, I'm a member of this world, and I don't have any real devotion, but if I do, I'm keeping that within, right? I'm not showing that. Right? So this is Śrīla Bhakti-siddhanta Saraswati Thakur.
It's so amazing because these days, like, you're actually answering a question I've been having in my mind since yesterday. This negotiating the space between like absolute truth and relative truth, and going deeper and like what does that mean, you know? And it's such a beautiful, actually, how you presented this is so beautiful in relation to that constant negotiation that we have to undergo internally.
Yeah, it's always a very tricky thing, isn't it? Navigating these two sides, right? The absolute and the relative, and where am I? And what am I culturing as my ideal, and how do I actually practice it, right? Here and now. What's appropriate for me? And this is why we're so fortunate to have these examples, right, of our gurus, and to see how, and they all show different examples also, and illustrating that what's appropriate for one is not appropriate for another, right?
Right, and then that's time, place, and circumstance.
Then that also, yeah.
But then, and then that changes also, like, so basically there's also gradation, and isn't there, in one's, the more sincere one is, the deeper one will have to go, and then that, to what extent does that change the relative one's relative truth?
Yes, it's always shifting, right? It's a dynamic thing. Yeah. Did you want more to be said on that?
No, I mean, okay. I'm loving your reflections on these kinds of things. And
yeah, I mean, that's why having living guidance is so valuable if we can get it, right? Because it is something that's always changing. But one other thing I wanted to mention, this is another interesting point that Śrīla Sridhar Maharaj mentioned about the Goswāmīs and why they live like this. He said another reason, because he pointed out, right, in their writings, they talk about Yukta-vairagya, right? And they establish it as legit, right? It's bona fide. Yukta-vairagya is bona fide. It's not something that we just made up recently, you know, for our own comfort, so that we can, you know, live a comfortable life and say, oh yes, we're using everything for Krishna, right? Yeah, we're using the internet and television and Facebook and pizza. And it's all Yukta-vairagya, right? We're using it all for preaching and for service, and, you know. It's almost like you can't do anything wrong if you have the Yukta-vairagya license, right? And everything's good, yeah. Yeah, I had to go to the pub last night. You know, like, Yukta, there's this guy there who's like really interested, and I just, you know, like, and you know, I had to take a few drinks with him as well. You know, it's all Yukta-vairagya, you know. So Śrīla Sridhar Maharaj made this point, very interesting, that the Goswāmīs, they talk about Yukta-vairagya in their writings. They establish it as a principle, but then they didn't actually practice it themselves. They lived lives of extreme renunciation. And you can say, everything we just said, they were showing this type of example to the world, right? Which is very helpful. It's a helpful reference for us. But then another interesting point he made is that they were living in an era when that was something highly regarded. Renunciation was something highly prized within society. And so they had to live up to the societal expectations of how a holy man will live, or how a sadhu, because they're representing Mahaprabhu's mission. And that's what people respect, right? They respect the sannyas, they respect Babaji, this type of thing. That was why Saraswati Thakur revived it also so many years later, right? Introduced it into Mahaprabhu's line. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj also said another thing was that the Mayavadis, they put so much emphasis on renunciation, right? And they do so many extreme practices of austerity. And so they had to show we are not less than them, right? It's not, we can't hack it, right? We're not tough enough for the real stuff, because people could easily criticize them in that way, right? Oh yeah, those bhakti people, they're so emotional and they just do anything and everything, and so the six Goswāmīs, they're like a very important example and reference point, not just for us, but for the world, right? And for other groups to look at us and see, oh no, they're people, they can also do this, they have done this, and they also value that, right? Then that gives more respect to Mahaprabhu's group, right? So that was another thing. Otherwise, the general people wouldn't have taken them so seriously, right? And we see also with Mahaprabhu how strict he was, right? He wouldn't, I still find it hard to understand, but there's one place, and I guess it must have been a thing at the time, but there's a place mentioned in Caitanya-caritāmṛta where it's indicated that it wasn't appropriate to even say the name of a woman. You remember that in front of him. Like, that's how strict he was, A woman wouldn't come in front of him, wouldn't even hear the name of a woman, sleeping on, just like a thin leaf mat, like that, very, very extreme renunciation. Because, that's what society would respect and expect and at that time. But then, fast forward in this modern age, that kind of thing scares people, actually, This is the age, and Saraswati Thakur rightly, with his vision, right? He's a spiritual visionary and revolutionary. He can see, this age is something different, right? This isn't the time for that. And I remember once, I wish I could find it. I had this notebook. I kept all these notes of these talks, but I lost it. But it was a talk of Gurudev where he was discussing this point. And he was like comparing, Mahaprabhu's era and how extreme he was in his style of renunciation. And then he said, and then he was glorifying Avadut Maharaj, who was at that time Jagannath Vallabha, and saying, and Gurudev said that same, and Avadut Maharaj, everyone knows, right? He's employing so many different things for the service, for the preaching, right? Very alternative, right? And embracing art, dance, all kinds of things, right? And Gurudev, he said, that same movement of Mahaprabhu, that's continuing in the preaching of Jagannath Vallabha, right? Like the outer appearance is completely different, but the inner essence is the same, right? It's very, very interesting. And so this is the brilliance of the preacher, right? That they need to be able to assess, as you said, time, place, circumstance, what's appropriate, right, for here and now. And, like read the room, right? What's the nature of the society that we're in, right? And so, Krishna consciousness may take on different outer forms, right, at different times, but the inner, according to the vision of the qualified Vaishnava, but the inner essence will remain the same, right? So it's a very interesting point. Well, we are actually getting late. I know there's lots of service today. We have another meeting at 11, and I think Dee Dee's waiting for some of you in the kitchen. So we can stop there today. To be continued. Jai Shri Caitanya-caritāmṛta ki Jai, Kṛṣṇadāsa Kavirāja Gosvāmī ki Jai. And we're going to hear more tomorrow about the renunciation of Sanātana Gosvāmī. So, do you want to sing? You have to go, okay. You want to sing, Prabhu?
Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana. Giridhari Gopinath Madhanam Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Kṛṣṇadāsa Śrīla Bhakti Śrīla Devi Maharaj ki jai, Vinupad Bhagavan Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada ki jai, Śrī Guru Varga ki jai, jai Śrī Chaitanya Saraswati ki jai, Śrī Chaitanya Saraswati Chapti ki jai, jai Śrī Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, jai Śrī Yukta-vairagya Didi ki jai, Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Durga Pramanandi